Details this morning on the deaths of Fast and Furious star Paul Walker and his friend killed in a fiery car accident.
New details in the death of actor Paul Walker. A coroner's report says Walker initially survived a horrific car crash.
The crash was sudden. The flames were unstoppable. But what came after was even harder to process. In the aftermath of Paul Walker's tragic death, investigators uncovered far more than just a wrecked supercar. Hidden in official reports were details that raised eyebrows and questions no one was ready for. The headlines told one version. The evidence? Another. Why did a vehicle designed for the track turn deadly on a suburban street? And what chilling discovery inside the autopsy shifted the story entirely? This isn't just about a crash. It's about what was overlooked, what was ignored, and what still doesn't quite add up. Paul Walker's final moments before the crash. On November 30th, 2013, Paul Walker attended a charity event for his organization, Reach Out Worldwide, at a car shop in Santa Clarita, California. The event was meant to benefit victims of Typhoon Haiyan in the Philippines. Friends, fans, and supporters had gathered for a holiday toy drive where Walker and his friend Roger Rodas, who owned the shop, were both present. Rodas, a professional driver, also brought his red 2005 Porsche Carrera GT, a rare high-performance sports car with a reputation for being difficult to control. Walker, known for his passion for cars and motorsports, was reportedly enjoying the event and engaging with attendees before stepping into the Porsche with Rodas. At some point during the event, the decision was made to take the Porsche out for a short drive. While this seemed spontaneous to some, others speculated there was a technical reason behind it. According to sources cited by The Hollywood Reporter, the Porsche had been experiencing issues. Witnesses claimed the car had started stalling as Rodas attempted to park it, prompting him to suggest taking it around the block to test it. Walker, being a car enthusiast himself, offered to join. This contradicts the assumption that the drive was meant as a joyride. Was it a precautionary test, or simply a shared interest moment between two auto enthusiasts? That question remains, but the context suggests it wasn't an impulsive, thrill-seeking act. As they were driving out of the parking lot, the people who were at the event were expecting them to be back soon. Walker told the people attending that he would be back shortly, making it clear that the excursion was not for a long time or meant to be very risky. But within a few minutes, the crash happened. This brief interval, along with the decision to test the car, raises more questions. Was there a mechanical fault that got worse only when they hit the road? Or did some unforeseen event make Rodas speed up far beyond the allowable speed limit? The answers remain elusive, but these final minutes would signal the beginning of a tragedy that would rip through the world. These few moments are vital because they form a more complete picture of Walker's last decisions. Neither would they be seen as reckless and impulsive, but more as an extension of perhaps everyday curiosity involving his interests with cars. Both he and Rodas were reasonable and seasoned drivers who respected performance cars. Part of what makes this so unsettling is that something as regular as checking on a stalled engine ended this cataclysmically. It alters the paradigm from enjoyable, speed-laden thrill-seeking to something much more involved, perhaps more tragic. What was supposed to be a quick spin turned into something far more devastating, almost instantly. The deadly drive. What happened during the crash? The fatal drive began around 3:30 p.m. on November 30th, 2013, just minutes after Paul Walker and Roger Rodas left the charity event in Santa Clarita. The route they took was along Hercules Street, an industrial road with a posted speed limit of 45 miles per hour. However, according to the final accident investigation reports by the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department and the California Highway Patrol, The Porsche Carrera GT was traveling between 80 and 93 miles per hour at the time of the crash. Surveillance footage and tire skid marks supported these findings. The car veered off the road, struck a curb, then hit a tree and a light pole before spinning and hitting another tree. The force of the impact split the car in half. The severity of the crash was not immediately understood by witnesses at the scene, but some attendees of the charity event had heard the sound of the collision from the shop. Several eyewitnesses reported rushing toward the site, only to find the vehicle already engulfed in flames. The extent of the crash damage indicated that the impact itself was violent enough to cause catastrophic injuries, even before the fire took hold. First responders arrived quickly, but both Walker and Rodas were declared dead at the scene. It's unclear exactly how long it took emergency crews to arrive, but by then, the damage had already been done. Investigators initially considered various scenarios for the crash, including the possibility of Rodas racing another vehicle, but they found no solid evidence to support that idea, a rumor that circulated considerably during the days following the crash. Factors such as street conditions and mechanical failure were excluded as primary causations by the authorities. However, they did mention that the car's tires were 9 years old at the time of the accident. This could have impaired the handling and traction of the vehicle, especially if these factors were pushed to their limits by speed. Excessive speed, however, would be the official cause of the crash. This conclusion raised several questions. Why would two experienced drivers, both race car drivers, have allowed the car to attain such dangerous speeds down a short, well-known stretch of road? While technically the investigation might have answered all questions, emotionally, it left several gaping wounds for Walker and Rodas's friends and sympathizers. Many who knew to be close to Walker and Rodas had difficulty accepting a finding of driver error. Was there an issue with the sudden change of road conditions on the driver's side? Or just poor judgment regarding the unpredictability of the car? What is certain is that this brief but deadly drive changed the lives of those who admired and loved Paul Walker forever, and raised persistent issues regarding safety and responsibility in driving powerful sports cars. The fire that sealed their fate. By the time witnesses arrived at the crash site, the Porsche Carrera GT carrying Paul Walker and Roger Rodas was already consumed by flames. According to first-hand accounts, the sound of the impact could be heard from the charity event just a short distance away, prompting several attendees to run toward the scene. What they found was a horrifying sight. The car had been split nearly in two and was engulfed in an intense fire. Flames poured from the vehicle, fed by both the crash damage and the car's high-performance fuel system. The fire had taken hold so quickly that there was virtually no time for a meaningful rescue attempt. Eyewitnesses, including some of Walker's friends and colleagues, immediately tried to intervene. Several individuals grabbed fire extinguishers from inside the nearby auto shop and sprinted toward the burning wreck. One attendee, Antonio Holmes, described the frantic efforts to save the occupants. Despite their desperation, the flames were far too intense. Holmes recalled using up multiple extinguishers with no success. The fire was already out of control, and those who reached the scene realized that Walker and Rodas were trapped inside the remains of the vehicle with no safe way to extract them. The fire department was immediately called, and emergency response personnel were in the scene in a matter of minutes. By the time their arrival reached the scene, however, the vehicle was beyond saving. The fire resulted in fatal thermal injuries, and both Walker and Rodas were declared dead on site. The intensity and speed of the fire became a central detail in the investigation because it raised the question of whether the crash would have been survivable without the car igniting so quickly. Later, investigators noted that the carbon fiber body and plastic components of the car accelerated the flames. The horrific manner of the fire makes the tragedy all the more profound. It wasn't just speed or impact that killed them. It was the inescapable inferno that followed. The fire precluded, in many ways, any further chance of survival for Walker and Rodas. For many who knew them personally, it was the hardest part to accept the fact that they were just a few feet away and couldn't do anything to assist. Perhaps better safety features or a more fire-resistant design would have changed the outcome. Perhaps, but it underscores just how deadly every second was in those last moments. The gruesome findings of the autopsy report. The autopsy report, conducted by the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office, revealed the extent of the trauma Paul Walker suffered in the crash. According to official documents released in January 2014, Walker sustained multiple blunt force injuries to several parts of his body. These included fractures to his skull, collarbone, ribs, arms, pelvis, and spine. The force of the crash was so severe that it inflicted widespread skeletal damage even before the vehicle caught fire. Roger Rodas, the driver, was also found to have suffered significant traumatic injuries, including a fractured skull. Neither man showed evidence of survivable trauma. The damage from the impact alone was devastating. For many, this forensic analysis shifted the public's conception of Walker's death. Once thought to be merely a matter of dying upon high-speed crash impact, the event is now not remembered exclusively for its brutal physical destruction, but rather for the equally cruel prospect of long-drawn suffering. These finer medical details have therefore radically altered the public perception of the incident and put more pressure on higher standards in safety regulations in the world of high-performance vehicles, especially in fire safety and crashworthiness. Whether there was anything to avoid Walker's fate is uncertain, but the deposition conversely continues to harass those in despair around Walker and his fans across the globe. As unsettling details emerged from the autopsy, attention soon shifted to the machine itself, one with a reputation as fierce as it is unforgiving. A car with a dangerous reputation. The 2005 Porsche Carrera GT, the car involved in Paul Walker's fatal crash, has long been recognized within the automotive community as a notoriously challenging vehicle to control. Even among experienced drivers, the Carrera GT is known for its raw power and sensitivity to road conditions. The car is equipped with a 5.7-liter V10 engine capable of producing over 600 horsepower, but it lacks modern electronic driver aids such as stability control. While that may appeal to professional racers, it also means there's less margin for error, particularly in uncontrolled environments like public roads. Automotive experts have repeatedly described the Carrera GT as demanding and unforgiving. During its production run, Porsche issued warnings to owners about the vehicle's responsiveness, especially under high-speed conditions. In fact, the car had a reputation for being more suited for racetracks than for city streets. In a separate incident years before Walker's death, Porsche test driver Walter Röhrl, an experienced rally champion, publicly noted that the car could be extremely difficult to handle even in ideal conditions. This has led many to question whether the Carrera GT should have ever been marketed for general road use at all. Lawsuits and independent investigations following the accident cited the car's design as a possible factor. Meadow Walker's wrongful death suit specifically stated that the Carrera GT lacked vital safety features, including electronic stability control and other safety padding present in less pricey Porsches. Porsche answered that both Walker and Rodas were highly experienced drivers who chose to drive the car at high speeds and were fully appreciative of its capabilities as well as limitations. That said, this was clearly no car for the casual stroll, least of all one through an industrial area. Such questions give rise to more general concerns about performance cars on our streets. Should cars with such limited error tolerance receive increased regulation? Was it enough for Porsche to just warn owners, or should it have pushed for design changes? While causation is complex in the extreme, the Carrera GT's clear notoriety for being dangerous cannot be shrugged off within the context of the death of Paul Walker. This incident serves mentally as a lesson to the skilled driver that power can defeat him when unpredictable handling is thrown into the mix, and by the Carrera GT all the more so. Mechanical concerns and tire neglect. One of the most overlooked yet critical details in the Paul Walker crash investigation was the condition of the Porsche Carrera GT's tires. According to the final report issued by the California Highway Patrol, the tires on the vehicle were approximately 9 years old at the time of the accident, well beyond the industry-recommended lifespan for high-performance rubber. Even if the tire tread appeared intact, aged tires can harden and lose grip, severely affecting a car's handling and braking capabilities. In a car as unforgiving as the Carrera GT, where control is already difficult, degraded tires introduce an added layer of danger that may have contributed to the fatal outcome. Experts and investigators highlighted that while no mechanical failure directly caused the crash, the tire's age likely played a role in how the car responded at high speeds. The vehicle was traveling between 80 and 93 miles per hour in a 45 miles per hour zone when it lost control and crashed. With old tires, even the smallest miscalculation or bump in the road could cause the car to slip or react unpredictably. This raises serious concerns about maintenance standards for ultra-high performance vehicles, particularly those used outside of controlled track environments. Could the accident have been avoided if the tires were properly maintained or replaced within a safer time frame? Porsche's own internal review of the crash found that the automobile in question exhibited no evidence of structural fault or mechanical defect. On the other hand, critics argue that this statement ignores the indirect effects maintenance can have on the capabilities of the car. In addition, the company claims that the car in question was abused and altered, working under the intent that it was far from its manufactured condition. While these comments served their purpose in verifying Porsche's side of the legal claims, they also provide hints toward probable abandonment of proper car care. If any modifications were made to the car or the mere neglect of one prime component, such as tires, contributed to the crash, that accountability would be shared by Porsche, the driver, and any who ever participated in the car's maintenance. In the end, this facet of the tragedy shows how even minor factors can turn fatal when they come into interplay with large amounts of power. Tire condition may not be the talk of speed, power, or impact, but perhaps it is involved in changing the dynamic of the vehicle in its last moments. It further defines a larger lesson to be taken by car lovers. High-performance cars require skillful handling, but, more importantly, an infinitely watchful eye when it comes to maintenance. Tire neglect may not have triggered Walker's death, but it takes a haunting what-if away from the scope of an otherwise preventable tragedy. The legal battle over responsibility. In the years following Paul Walker's death, legal battles unfolded as his family and others sought to hold Porsche accountable for the circumstances surrounding the fatal crash. Roger Rodas's widow, Christine Rodas, was among the first to file a wrongful death lawsuit against the automaker. She alleged that design flaws in the 2005 Porsche Carrera GT contributed to her husband's death and claimed the vehicle lacked basic safety features such as electronic stability control, which might have helped prevent the crash. Her lawsuit suggested that Porsche was aware of the car's dangers but failed to make necessary modifications or warn owners adequately. Paul Walker's daughter, Meadow Walker, filed a similar lawsuit in 2015. Her legal team argued that the Carrera GT was inherently unsafe and should not have been approved for road use without essential safeguards. The suit cited specific missing features, some present in lower-end Porsche models, that could have improved survivability, including side impact protection and crash stability technology. According to the suit, had the vehicle been equipped with those systems, Paul Walker might have survived the crash or at least had a better chance of escaping the fire. Meadows' case drew widespread attention due to her father's fame and the emotional weight it carried. Porsche has absolutely rebuffed the allegation of liability. The company replied that the car had been abused and modified, then misused and not put to the proper maintenance. In their defense, Porsche stated that both Walker and Rodas were seasoned drivers who took out the car at super speed, fully aware of the risks such a powerful vehicle would carry in doing so. They contended that the Carrera GT was legally permissible when delivered, and set fault on the crash itself to dangerous driving at speeds much too high for that road, not to any defect in the car itself. The position was backed by an official investigation that reported excessive speed as the primary cause of the accident, rather than mechanical failure. Ultimately, Christine Rodas's lawsuit was dismissed, but Meadow Walker reached a sealed settlement with Porsche in 2017. The terms were not disclosed, hinting at a possible signal for liability in this case. These lawsuits have certainly not brought clear closure or definite blame, as they have mapped out the difficult waters of high-performance car crashes liability. The complaints certainly raised very valid issues, such as design accountability, driver responsibility, and the murky line drawn between personal choice and product safety. Thus, for many, it became a court case extension of mourning, showing the need for an answer, and adults where clarity is lacking. Public grief and fan reactions. Paul Walker's death sent shockwaves through Hollywood and the global fan base of the Fast and Furious franchise. Within hours of the news breaking, tributes began flooding social media, with fans, co-stars, and public figures expressing their sorrow and disbelief. Vigils were held outside the crash site in Santa Clarita, California, where fans left candles, flowers, photos, and car memorabilia in honor of the actor. The scene quickly became a makeshift memorial, and its emotional impact was evident. People from all walks of life, including those who didn't know Walker personally, felt compelled to mourn someone they had come to admire for both his on-screen charisma and off-screen kindness. Hollywood colleagues, including Vin Diesel, Dwayne Johnson, and Tyrese Gibson, shared emotional tributes, recalling Walker not just as a talented actor, but as a loyal friend and compassionate human being. Diesel, in particular, described Walker as a brother and delivered an impromptu speech at the crash site just days later. Gibson was seen breaking down in tears during a visit to the memorial. These raw moments illustrated how Walker's death wasn't just the loss of a movie star, but of someone deeply loved within his personal and professional circles. The grief extended far beyond his family. His absence left a void in an entire franchise and fan culture. Walker, as Brian O'Connor, had become iconic in the Fast and Furious series, and to the fans, he was more than just a character. He represented the essence of passion, loyalty, and love for cars and family. His authenticity with the public, both in front of and behind the camera, allowed him to develop a strong bond with his audiences. After Walker's tragic death, the production of Furious 7 was suspended briefly by Universal Pictures, and later rewritten with the intent of giving a dignified and touching farewell to Walker's character. In the movie's concluding scene, the montage of Walker and the symbolic end of the road with Diesel became one of modern cinema's most memorable tributes. Paul Walker's emotional demise is still alive in people's memories. The car culture community continues to pay tribute to him during automotive events and cruises, with online memorial forums being just a sliver of options. His legacy has been pinned down through fan tattoos, tribute videos, and yearly meetings at the accident site. Tragic and complex continue to be Walker's death. Therefore, publicly reacting to it speaks volumes about the strong, positive impression he has left behind on millions. His friends keep grieving, not just for the man who died in a car accident. They grieve for the one who caused them to care about cars, friendship, and making a difference in the world, on screen and off. Even as the world mourned his loss, something powerful began to take shape in his absence, an enduring mission driven by those he left behind. How Paul Walker's legacy lives. On Patton, Paul Walker's legacy did not end with his death. In many ways, it only grew stronger through the actions of his family and supporters. His daughter, Meadow Walker, established the Paul Walker Foundation in 2015 to honor her father's lifelong dedication to ocean conservation, wildlife protection, and helping people in need. The foundation funds scholarships for marine biology students, supports organizations focused on environmental research, and engages in charitable outreach, continuing the kind of work that Paul quietly pursued during his lifetime. Through this initiative, Meadow has kept her father's values alive and created a tangible way for fans to support the causes he cared about. In parallel, Cody Walker, Paul's brother, launched Fuel Fest, a global car festival that blends high-performance vehicles with charity. Fuel Fest isn't just a car show, it's a tribute to Paul's love of cars, community, and humanitarian work. A portion of proceeds from each event goes to Reach Out Worldwide, ROWW, the nonprofit Paul founded in 2010 after assisting with disaster relief in Haiti. The organization sends skilled first responders to areas struck by natural disasters. Even a decade after Paul's passing, ROWW continues to operate globally, providing fast and effective aid in some of the world's most vulnerable regions. Proving the durability of such efforts is that they extend the impact of Walker far beyond Hollywood. Indeed, his film career gave him fame, but no less evident is that his humanitarian work and passion for serving have left a mark of equal or greater stature. So many fans became donors or volunteers in organizations that carry his name. That his family has so actively been involved in his legacy's preservation and continuing extension suggests a very real sense of responsibility, not only towards his memory but also toward the ideals for which he stood. His legacy did not fade with time, but evolved into organized action and global outreach. Moreover, such legacies also serve to present a counter-narrative against the stereotypical tale of celebrity commemoration. Paul Walker does not just remain alive with fond memories or replays of his movies, but rather leaves a legacy through tangible change-making initiatives in the present. His family's ongoing interest ensures that his ideals of kindness, compassion, and community will continue beyond his death. Future generations will discover Walker, not only through Fast and Furious or learn about him through these foundations, but they will also discover his character through service to others. That work may indeed be the best form of memorialization. If you found this video insightful, make sure to like it, drop a comment with your thoughts,